actually recording. Cool. Okay, I am. Beautiful. All right. Okay. So, welcome to this clinic on how to create a routine. So, my name is Felix. I'm currently a leader instructor with Crystal Pirates, and then I also instruct with SSD, TDA, and JDC. Like I said a moment ago, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to throw them in the stage chat, and there will be time for questions at the end of the clinic. So, just general goals for today. We're going to go over how you can prepare in advance when thinking about making a routine, um, choreography, what that looks like, documentation. So this is like your notes as a commander, your riders writing their own notes, diagrams, videos, that kind of thing. Structuring your practices, and then at the very end, filming and submitting your routine. All right, so let's get into advanced prep. So you want to do what you can to set yourself up for success ahead of time so that you're not kind of scrambling. That's not fun. So one of the things you can do is you can create a competition calendar for yourself. So I have as an example here in the top right, the SSD's calendar for 2025, but that's just one server. SSD is the most well known. But for example, SSO embassies sometimes host competitions. There are some smaller servers that also host competitions. I'm trying to remember their names off the top of my head. One of them I think is called Star Stable Club Competitions, SSCC. And then there was one other. I can't remember what their name is right now. But you can kind of make like a calendar just for yourself of like all the competition servers you're in, and you keep track of their different competition timelines for the year. Sometimes individual clubs and teams will also host small competitions here and there. Maybe it's like to celebrate like an important milestone for them. So one example I have here is Crystal Pirates is doing one called Art in the Arena at the moment. So that could also be something you could consider, especially if you're newer to doing choreography or making routines. Sometimes it's nice to start with like a smaller competition server or like a competition that's hosted by a club or team because it's less, um, I guess it's less competitive, it's less stressful than doing SSD. And then you will still get like feedback from whoever's hosting the competition, whether it's a smaller server or it's like a club or team. So yeah, so you can make your own, you could make like a fancy calendar like the one SSD has, you color code it and stuff, and you make it in Canva maybe. Or you could just have like a Google spreadsheet or a Google Doc or even just like a channel in like your staff server, or if you have like a storage server just for yourself where you can keep track of stuff. And then you can kind of plan out ahead of time and say, hey, for example, in August, I know that SSD has internationals and training trials. I think I want to enter in training trials, so would I start planning maybe beginning of July for that? Thinking about, uh, do I have time to actually prepare a routine and then command it until the it's time to submit? Do I have enough writers currently who are at the right level to write a routine? Do I need to maybe think ahead of time of maybe having some extra practices to like maybe work on comb alignment or writing nice circles, for example? So you can kind of like think ahead of time, what do I need to do to be ready to start um, prepping the routine and then also teaching it? Uh, yes. So then the other thing too is looking at your competition requirements. So oftentimes competition servers, and if it's a smaller competition server or club or team hosting a competition, they will have a special ping role that you can pick up, and then you can get pinged when the requirements are released, and you can look right away and go, hey, that theme is really interesting. I would like to create a routine for that. Or maybe you're like, I don't vibe with that theme. Maybe I'm going to skip on this one and then pick a competition from somewhere else. So just taking a look at the requirements. So some important things to look for is one, do submissions open and close? What is the overall theme that you need to work around? How many writers are needed? Sometimes there's several divisions. So like, are you submitting for like the novice division? Maybe it's like 4 writers is the minimum. And then maybe if you want to submit in the more competitive division, I see usually like 6 or 8 is the minimum. So how many writers do you need? What's important here too is uh, a good rule of thumb is, for example, if you need 4 riders, you want at least half of that amount available as alts. So if you need 4 mains, you want at least 2 alts. If you need 6 mains, you want at least 3 alts. So the worst thing is getting towards the end of the routine, or even while you're practicing it, you don't have enough riders to fill the spots. So having enough alts is always nice. Sometimes you're just stuck because you're like you're a really small club routine. You just have to work with what you have. But ideally, half the amount of alts for the required mains is a good number, uh, generally. So how many riders do you need? How long does the routine need to be? So minimum and maximum. Filming and audio requirements. So the standard is like the fourth camera angle looking top down, but sometimes they allow reshade, sometimes they don't allow reshade. Are they asking you to use a specific song? Sometimes they're like, you can only use this audio. Or maybe they're like, the audio has to be kind of in this general category, like maybe like you can only use jazz music, for example. And then if there are any special elements they want you to include, so this could be specific moves, shapes, or like concepts. So um, like sharp lines versus curved lines, that kind of thing. And then if you're feeling really gung ho, you could go look if they have like a rule book or a handbook that goes like really into depth into like how things are scored. You can go look at that as well. The next thing is you want to think about is the timeline. So like I was saying a little earlier, how long do you have to prepare the routine? How long do you have to teach it to your riders? So like how many practices can you host per week? And then just think about realistically, if I hosted, for example, 5 practices per week, how many people would actually show up? So even if I do say, okay, we're gonna do 5 practices per week, but you know that they won't come to more than 3, maybe you go in between, maybe you do 4. Um, and then you also need to think about like, even if you plan your whole routine in advance, or maybe you plan it bit by bit as you go through practices and you make adjustments as needed, how much time do you need to make those adjustments? Maybe you need to make some big adjustments at the end, or you might need to teach someone last minute because someone dropped out for some reason and you have someone come in, you have to teach them that spot last minute. You also need to think about how much time do you need to film the routine and edit it. Um, so all that should be included in your timeline. Um, the next thing is recruiting your riders. So this includes like your mains, your alternates, and then your god alts. So your main riders are usually somebody who rides one spot and they only ride that one spot during the entirety of the competition cycle or the entirety of that routine. Um, and ideally, they're also in the final take if possible. An alternate is someone who learns like 1 or 2 spots and they only ever ride those 1 or 2 spots. And then a god alt is somebody who's like very strong in dressage and learning choreography, and they can learn like 3 or 4 spots. Like you know that last minute you could teach them this thing in like half an hour to an hour, and they would have it down no problem. So what's important when you're recruiting your riders is that you let them know all the details. So like for example, you can make an announcement saying there's this upcoming routine. Here's all the information. You can like link to the specific channel in the server, and they can go look at it themselves, or you can screenshot everything so they can see all the info. Lay out a timeline for them. So when practices will start, how many practices they are expected to attend per week, and how long they will be. So generally, your main should attend most practices. Your alts can attend about half. Same with your god alts. When you plan to film, so usually like the last week or 2 before you need to submit is filming, and then how writers can sign up for spots. Um, so they could be, for example, maybe use a Google form if you're feeling really fancy, or they can just DM whoever's in charge of that routine and say, hey, I would like to be a main. I would like to be an alt. I would like to be a god alt, for example. Another option is if currently you really want to work on a routine, but there's no competitions coming up that interest you, you could do a showcase. So a showcase is basically a routine where you decide the theme and the timeline. So you could just say, hey, we're gonna just make a routine for fun. We're gonna work on it for 1 to 3 months, and this will just showcase uh, what we've been working on dressage wise. Just the thing here is that your routine won't be judged since you're not submitting it for a competition, but it's also like a good way to kind of ease into choreographing for the first time because you don't have to worry about um, being judged And you could also ask people for feedback, like if you know some people um, who also instruct or who choreograph, you could say, hey, like my club team is working on a showcase routine, or we just filmed it. Can you give us some feedback, what you think, where we could improve on, what we did well, that kind of thing. All right. That's just preparing in advance. The more advanced prep you do, the less stressful it is for yourself later on. You're not kind of scrambling to kind of figure stuff out. Everything's just ready, which is nice. Okay, next little bit is choreography. Yippee. Okay. Um, so the first couple times you do choreo, unless you've had the chance to learn from someone else, you're kind of just lost. Don't really know what you're doing. Um, unless maybe you've like been in dance, for example, and you can kind of apply dance choreo and how that's structured. But generally you don't really know what you're doing. Um, so what I would highly recommend is look for mentors. So this could be that in your current club or team, or maybe you think about joining a club or team that has experienced choreographers, and that gives you a chance to learn from them. So this could be that when you apply, you mention, hey, I'm really interested in learning how to choreo. I would like to help choreo. Um, just to gain that experience. I want to help out. I want to learn all that good stuff. Personally, I learned a lot from Toilet, who's the owner of Crystal Pirates, on how to choreo. Before I joined Crystal Pirates, I had previously done a couple routines for the club I was in before, but I had no idea what I was doing. I was just kind of like doing whatever kind of made sense to me at the time with what I knew about dressage. But Toilet had a lot of uh, routine and choreographing experience, and I learned a lot from her, and I still continue to learn a lot from her. When you're first starting out with your choreo, like even before you begin, you can do some brainstorming sessions. So this can be looking for inspiration. So like music, movies, TV shows, art, other routines, things like marching band too, or IRL dressage or drill. Just looking at how shapes are created and how you can replicate that on in SSO. You can make some mood boards. So I've got some examples here I just pulled off Google, but you could make some mood boards kind of similar with like colors or like outfits you're thinking of using, or like just general like things that kind of help to set the theme or the mood that you're going for with your routine. Just make sure that if you are looking at other SSO routines that you're not copying like sequence to sequence or move to move. Just like say if you're like, oh, like that transition was super interesting, maybe I can incorporate something kind of similar. So you don't want to copy exactly, but you can like be inspired by. um, I would say as well, just don't be afraid to try several different songs or themes out during your planning process, to see what works best for you as you're thinking about choreo and for your riders. So you can also get their feedback as well. You kind of have like an inspiration dump like channel where people can put like their ideas once you've made that initial announcement. This is the competition we're going to be working on. This is the theme. People can say like, oh, this song would maybe work well, or maybe an outfit like this would be cool, or I just watched a movie and it really fits in well with the theme. Maybe we could pull inspiration from the movie, for example. Um, what's also great with doing your choreo is working with other choreographers and your writers. So two or more brains are better than one. It's really nice if you have another person there to bounce your ideas off them. Um, Also, depending on your commanding style, while you're in practice, you can encourage your writers to give feedback and their ideas in the moment. So, for example, say you're like trying out the next little bit of routine, and you could say, okay, what did you guys think? Like, how did that flow for you guys as you're writing it? And then maybe they can say, oh, maybe like, what if we cantered here instead of trotting? Maybe that would be nice. Or I think in this section, what if we added on like a half pinwheel or something? Maybe that would be fun. So don't be afraid to encourage your writers to suggest things because sometimes they notice stuff while they're riding that you may not think about when you're just looking top down, fourth camera angle, watching everybody. But as they're riding in their spot, they can maybe see like, oh yeah, like my teammate is over here, but maybe if we both did this thing or I did this thing, it would look nicer. That might be more visually interesting for the judges. Another fun thing too is you can ask them to give the moves or sequences silly names. That just makes things more fun. So for example, in a previous routine, we had a sequence that was called chicken butt. So I would say chicken butt set, and then you knew what they were supposed to do on go. So yeah, just have fun with it. You don't need to be super serious. Um, ask your riders for their feedback, or if there's people who are interested in doing choreo with you, um, I highly encourage it. Makes things more fun. Um, yes, choreography. And then also too, like with your first few routines, I think the best thing is just starting. Your first routine is you'll grow from there. It's not going to be your best work. You'll just improve over time. So don't be afraid to start, to just uh maybe not jump into the deep end, but like step into the shallow end of the pool and just get your first routine out of the way so that you can keep on swimming and get better over time. With each routine, your brain just kind of starts to think about choreography more. Like often now I fall asleep thinking about choreo. Um, or like I'm at work and I think about something randomly and I just like quickly write it down and go back to what I'm doing. But yeah, the more you do it, the easier it gets, as with most things. Right, that's choreography. Documentation. Okay, good documentation is essential in keeping things streamlined and organized. So on the top right here, I have an example of my commanding notes. So this is just in a Google Doc that I have. So while I'm preparing choreography in advance, whether that's by myself or with multiple people, I just try to keep in-depth notes. So right here, I have like the colors of the riders that correspond to how I color code diagrams. I also try to keep things more detailed just in case I have to step out for whatever reason and somebody else commands in my spot. Um, it's highly detailed, so theoretically they should be able to follow along with my commanding notes. And hopefully too, they've been at practices, so they kind of have a feel for how things are commanded as well. The more detailed your notes are, the easier it is to keep track of where you are, and the easier it is for someone to step in and take over if you're feeling sick or you had a trip that you were away for like 5 days, for example, and somebody else needs to command while you're away. Detailed commanding notes will kind of save your butt here. Um, and then another thing too is like Toilet, who's the owner of Crystal Pirates, she will take little like those clear sticky notes and she will actually stick them on her monitor where stuff needs to be commanded. So she's like, okay, I know at that red sticky note here, when this rider their nose reaches that point, I need to command this move. So that's also a fun option. It's kind of funny though, you have sticky notes all over your monitor and they're there while you're doing other stuff, but if you're more of a visual kind of person, that's helpful. All right. Other important thing is rider notes. So how your riders keep track of their spots in the routine. So here we have a screen grab of where Wheel uh, took a photo of her outfit, just so she can remember what her outfit is for the routine each time she comes to practice and what horse she's riding. And then in the bottom left is an example of Goop taking notes um, of a certain spot in the routine. So what's important with this as well is encourage your riders to keep detailed notes, whether they are a main rider or an alt. Ideally, their notes are so good that if someone just steps in last minute to learn their spot, they can learn the spot just based on the notes with minimal help from whoever's commanding the routine. You can also take a video of your POV as you're riding. So you can encourage your main and alt riders to do that as well. Um, maybe like once a week or something. Like when you've added on a significant amount of choreo, encourage them if they can to take a video. So then if someone else comes and learns the spot, they have that POV video as well. But detailed notes again are great. Super helpful. And then diagrams and videos from the commanding point of view. So on the bottom right here, I have a diagram of the aforementioned chicken butt set. So what I will usually do is I'll draw the diagrams out. I will color code them based on who is writing what. And so not only do I do this is like a diagram where everybody's spot is shown, but I'll also do an individual diagram where just one spot is shown, so you don't have these overlapping lines. So this can be helpful too if you're teaching this. So we had 6 writers here. So say I start out with teaching the person who's the red arrows, and then I say, everybody else, go look at the diagram. You can practice on your own what you think the diagram is showing, and then you slowly teach each person. But they have something to look at while they're waiting. And then, like I mentioned earlier, my diagram colors match the colors that I use in my commanding notes. You can also, as the commander, if there's a really tricky section in the choreography, you can film POV of yourself writing that spot. And then they can look at it ahead of time before practice starts. And then also too, it's nice if at the end of practice you get like a recording of where you are up to in the choreo at that time. So you kind of have like a progress over time of how you've been adding stuff. And also too, if you had some people who can make practice, they can kind of see like, okay, this is where they got up to. They can go and look at the notes that their main or alt took, or watch those POV videos, so they can kind of all stay on the same page. So like the more you can encourage your writers to take good notes, to communicate with each other, hey, this is what we learned today. Maybe we can get together before next practice and I can teach you the extra little bit that we added on. The easier it is for you as a commander, you have to do less, which is nice because you're already doing a lot. Instructing, preparing new choreo, helping people get caught up, making diagrams, etc., etc., etc. So it's nice if you can encourage your writers to take up some of that work for you and support each other, be good teammates, all that good stuff. All right, so that's documentation. Um, oh, and the other thing that I forgot to mention is what I tried recently with a routine, the last one we did with EOT here, is use a form. So then you can have in your form, you can have a post for each rider. So for example, Goop was a main rider. So I had like main rider, Goop was, what color was Goopity? Goopity was the magenta, I think. So main rider Goose, and then in parentheses like magenta in diagrams. And then in that form, I listed who Goose's alts were. So I think Goose had one alt, or was it two? Two alts. And then what happened is Goose would write her notes in that form. And then whenever an alt would be there for Goose, they would write their notes in. And then Goose and the alts would talk back and forth and say, like, hey, this was added today. Here's screen grabs of where we were in the arena, or I took a video of myself writing the spot, or here's the diagrams that Felix made. I'm putting them in the form here for you. So they kind of talk to each other, get each other caught up that way. So I found the form worked really well. You can also use like a Google Doc, um, where everybody goes and writes their notes in that one Google Doc. But what I found happened with the Google Doc is people are like, I gotta open a Google Doc? That's too much work. So if you can keep everything on Discord, they don't have to go somewhere else, open a thing. It's already there. It's in the closed server. They know where it is. You can ping them. Um, the form worked well for me. So you can try both. See what your club or team prefers. Okay, documentation. All right, practices is next. So with practices, um, so the more you can be consistent with your practices, like you kind of have the same format each time, it will kind of get your riders into a routine, pun intended, as you're working on the routine. Um, so what's good with this is that you pull them in advance. So generally, I would say pull them like the Wednesday or the Thursday, like midweek for the upcoming week, and then you would schedule based on who has the most availability. So like starting with your mains, try to schedule practices based on when they can attend, and then secondary when your alts can attend. So two options here is you can use like a Discord and then just have them react based on like the emojis. So like here in this Echoes of Tomorrow one in the top right, I had this little watch emoji. The blue one is Monday, the blue star is Tuesday, etc., etc. And then they just react to what days work for them. Or if you want to give like more options, I find when to meet works well. You can basically set a series of dates and then like a range of times. So here this is 4 Pacific to 8 Pacific. And then when to meet also automatically converts to their time zone. So you don't have to worry about saying like you need to think in this time zone. They just think about their time zone. When am I available this week? And then you can kind of go from there. What's also important is that you're releasing your schedule in advance of when practices are happening. So ideally, like if you could say like Friday or Saturday, I release the practice schedule that starts Monday. So then they can look at it and go, okay, comp practice is happening like Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday next week. At this time, I'm available for all, for two, for one. So then ideally they can let you know ahead of time what they can make, and you can kind of think of ahead of time, when do I need to make sure some alts are there if a main rider is unavailable. So you can plan for that. And then also too, if they know they're going to miss, like say for example, Tuesday's practice, they can think about, okay, I'm going to get in touch with the person who rode my spot before Thursday's practice, see if we can log on together for like 30 minutes, and they'll teach me what I missed. So if you can give the schedule in advance, they can also plan in advance, which is great. Okay, next little thing is structured practices. So um, generally what I let them do is I let them yap for like 5-10 minutes at the start, or you can say arrive early to get your yapping done. Um, then generally you want to go over whatever they learned the previous practice a few times just to kind of refresh their memories. Get any what I'm looking for, like a get their fingers in the dressage tippity tapping key groove. Do a couple run throughs for that. And then say you have a main or alt present who hasn't been caught up for their spot, while everybody else is doing those kind of run throughs of what they've learned already. That person can again go look at the notes or the videos and catch themselves up that way. Or if they need extra help, if you have a sub commander, like say somebody who maybe helped you choreo, or you have another rider there who's ridden that spot previously, and you know they're a strong rider, you can say, okay, you guys are going to go in this other call. They're going to run you through it quickly, teach you, and then add that person in, get them into the loop. So once you've done a few kind of refresher uh, sections of what we learned previously, you can move on to adding new choreo. Ideally, each time you add on like a new sequence or a new series of moves, you're going again from the beginning all the way to this new little bit that you've added on, just so they can get like the flow of the whole thing. Um, Also, too, this is good while you're watching. Maybe you see some people struggling here and there. This is the good time to ask for their thoughts. Like, hey, like, what's a random name? Window. I'm looking at a window right now. Window. I saw that you were having trouble with like that slant alignment in the corner. What if we tried this gate instead, or what if we had you do this instead? Um, this is also too where you can, if you know you have some riders that are stronger or like your stronger riders versus your newer or less experienced riders, you can say, okay, I can see this person is having a really hard time with this part of the routine. Maybe I move them to a spot in the routine that's a little easier, and then I let a stronger rider take that spot. So you can think of like maybe they need to switch somewhere, or is there like something I can do to have them transition so that the newer rider or the less experienced rider can move to an easier spot in the routine, and then my stronger rider can go to like a more difficult position. And then as you approach the end of practice, try to get some nice clean run throughs with everything that you've added, and then try to take some recordings so that you can kind of keep track of your progress. Um, and then you can like upload that, people can watch them, see how it syncs with the music, all that good stuff. Also, you want to plan for breaks, some brain breaks. Learning choreography really engages the neurons and the creation of new neural pathways. So depending on your rider's ability to remain focused, it's good to give like a 5-10 minute break every 30 to 45 minutes, just so they can kind of like take a little break, get from their desk, do a little dance. Maybe they go get like a drink of water, another beverage, or a little snacky snack, run to the bathroom. Give them some breaks. Because if you try to keep them focused for like a really long period of time, they're going to start making mistakes. They're going to start, their attention is going to drift away. Um, so try to have some breaks planned here and there. Um, Ideally, I would say don't practice for more than 90 minutes unless they can really lock in. Like 60, 90 minutes is good. And then if you really need to push for like a longer practice, like 2 hours, say near the end, if you're trying to get that good final take for your routine, you can do that, but you should communicate with them in advance so that's going to happen. Because if you're like, oh, we're filming this week, and then previously they've been used to like 90-minute practices, and you're like, by the way, today is 2 hours, and then a couple of people are like, I can't stay that long. So just let them know in advance if you want to try and do that. And then the last thing is keeping your alternate riders engaged. So ideally, your alts should try to come as many practices as they can, just so they're in the loop of where the choreography is, any changes you're making, all that good stuff. And then a good way to do this is to have them meatball. What does this mean? So I have a little picture here. So you have Rin, who is on foot, and Rin is, or Magpie, that's their nickname, is meatballing for Mishi. That's Mishi on the paint. So Magpie is an alt for Mishi's spot. Mishi's the main rider. So while Mishi is riding their spot, Magpie is following Mishi on foot. Um, so it can be a little distracting if you have all your alts on their horses following their mains around. Then your mains can't keep track of who are the other mains, when am I supposed to transition, who am I aligning to. So if your alts can be on foot and they can just follow around the main rider, it gives them the chance to get a feel for the sequences of moves, when things are called, if they need to go into global, ignore, all that good stuff. They can still practice it on foot. And then what's nice is at the end of practice, you like give the meatballs or the alternate riders the chance to get on their horses and do like 2 run-throughs on their horses, so then they can experience the gait changes on horseback. And at that point, they can follow their main rider if maybe they're not feeling too confident, or they can try to just do it on their own and their main rider watches in the stands, or they reverse meatball. The main rider is on foot and follows their alternate rider around. So yeah, this is a great way of keeping your alts kind of like, so they're not just sitting in the stands like on TikTok not paying attention. And maybe all of a sudden you're like, hey, window, I need you to come and alt for a second, and they're on TikTok and they're not paying attention to you. If they're in the arena, they're actively running around, getting their steps in. They're more likely to be locked in and thinking about the choreo and ready to hop on their horses and ride if needed. Okay, last little bit here is filming and submitting. Um, So what I really recommend for this is that you give yourself more time than you think you need to film, because almost always something will happen when you need to film. A main rider is suddenly not available and you have to quickly teach somebody their spot. Uh, a bunch of people aren't available to come to practice and film. Maybe you have to tweak something last minute, like you had a burst of inspiration and you're like, oh, we should do this instead, or um, I'm trying to think. Yeah, something comes up and you need to change it. So generally, I'd say like 1 to 2 weeks is nice before submission for filming. Um, and then I personally like to give myself 48 to 72 hours to edit, so that's 2 to 3 days. This just gives me buffer time. Like say for example, OBS is being a bookie and is not wanting to record, and I have to figure out another recording software to use. Or maybe like I was editing in CapCut and all of a sudden CapCut it doesn't want to work and I have to pivot to some other editing software like DaVinci or I don't know what. So giving yourself that extra time to edit is so nice. It also gives you a bit of time to like think about if you want to film an intro outro and include that in your submission video. Like you don't have to, but that also gives you a bit of extra time to do that. Um, and then the other thing is ideally too, you're submitting your routine in the Google form or whatever that competition server uses like a few hours before, like 4 or 5 hours before it closes. Because the worst thing is you're trying to submit it like 2 minutes before it closes and then you miss the submission window. And then you have to DM a judge and be like, I missed the submission window. Can I still submit? Not fun. So ideally you're submitting a few hours early as well. What's also really important here is go over for like one last time before you submit. Like what I usually do is I have the Google form open on one side, and then on the other side of my monitor, I have like a Google Doc or like a note, like notepad window open. And I'm looking at the submission form and what I need to enter in each field. And I'm typing it out first in the notepad document or the Google Doc or whatever. Okay, describe the routine. I write the description over here, go down to the next question, write it in the little doc to the side so that you can double check everything you're inputting, and then you can just copy paste it into the Google form. So you can check your spelling, you can check your formatting, you can double check today, make sure to include all the necessary timestamps, for example, or I'm describing the right things. Am I submitting the right file? Double check that, the right link, all that good stuff. It's nice to have it in a separate document rather than just putting in the Google form itself. Got a separate document open, you can just double, triple check everything before you actually copy paste everything and submit it. Uh, Next, once that's all done, You filmed, you edited, you submitted. Yippee! I highly recommend scheduling a premiere of your routine in your open server. So this just gives you a chance to kind of show off all your hard work. And then uh, everybody who was in the routine can kind of come and celebrate. If you have any members in your club routine who weren't in the routine, they can come and support um, their friends. And then if you have any guests in your open server, they can come watch as well. You could even have like a special like premiere ping to encourage people to come to those. Yeah, it's just kind of like a nice way to cap off the whole experience. Also too, if you have like some funny bloopers, you can have a bloopers reel at the end or like a separate bloopers video. This is also funny. If your writers film POV stuff, sometimes you get some really funny bloopers out of that. So like some ways that you can do this to kind of break tension while filming or long practices is have everybody be on foot. Have them take the speed glitch and do a run through super fast. Everybody goes backwards. Have people trade spots. That's really chaotic because they're trying to think about, okay, normally I ride this spot, now I'm riding this spot. I speed read their notes, okay, full send, try my best. You can have a random person command and you go and ride their spot. So lots of options for like silly moments. You can break up um like that super focused energy, give them a little brain break, do a little silly run through like midway or at the end, and then you have some fun moments if you want to do a bloopers reel. Last but not least, ask for feedback from your riders. So once you get your scorecard from the judges, if they had any extra feedback as well, um, share that with your riders and be like, hey, here's our scorecard. Here's all the feedback we got. What are your thoughts? Like, what do you guys think? Like, do you agree with their feedback? What are the things we can improve next time? Yeah, no worries, cops. I will ping. Um, what did we do well? What can we improve based on the judges' feedback? So you can have them all kind of send that in like whatever channel or forum you were using for organizing things, or if your members are a little more shy, you could have like an anonymous Google form. But generally, I find that it's kind of nice if they can use like a Discord channel or like forum to talk because they can talk back and forth with each other about like, hey, like, yeah, I noticed this part. This was a little difficult for me. And maybe somebody else goes, yeah, it was hard for me too. Or maybe a third person goes, oh, I tried this and it worked really well for me. So they can kind of like talk back and forth with each other about what they enjoyed about the routine, what they would like to see in future routines, how we can improve as writers, but also they can give you feedback as a commander and a choreographer as well. So yes, feedback is great. We love feedback. Anytime you can get that, it helps you improve and it also helps you like remove like potential roadblocks in the future with your next routine. That's great. Feedback is the best. Alrighty, question. Time for questions or comments. I know I yapped straight for what was that, like 40 minutes? But if y'all have any questions, comments, all that good jazz, feel free to send them in the stage chat. I'll just wait a few moments while y'all are thinking. I'll do a little dance in front of my desk while you guys are doing that. See, this is my break. This is my brain break. I do a little dance. Little dancey dance. I see Anna is typing. Um, oh, I'm glad it was helpful, Anna. That's great. And yeah, like I said earlier, the hardest part about getting into making routines is just starting. Just making that first routine. And like don't get into your head about, oh, it's gonna be bad. I've never made one before. It's like if you've ever like started a new hobby like knitting or crochet or painting or playing an instrument, you're not going to be good at first. And making mistakes is part of learning. So just get that first routine out of the way. Have fun with your riders, your other choreographers, instructors. Just have a fun time, and you'll just get better over time as you get more feedback, as you start to like grow your choreography brain, and you start to dream about it, hopefully in a nice way, not a stressful way. But yeah, just getting started is the biggest step. Yeah, that's a good point, Anna. If you've already made stuff for fun, definitely you've already kind of started that process. It'll definitely be easier for you with your first like official quote unquote routine. That's good. Yeah, picking a song and then just making something. Yeah, for sure. Mm. Okay. Well, if we don't have any further comments or questions, thanks so much for attending this clinic. If you guys do think of something later on, feel free to send me a DM, or if you have things you'd like to see discussed in a future clinic, feel free to send those to me as well. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, night, whatever time zone you're in. I know it's late for the European peeps. It's like 10 or something, almost 11. Yes, have a lovely evening. Bye. Thanks for coming.